everyone and welcome back. So after quite a few delays and a whole bunch of messages from you guys, it is finally time to make the last addition to my all-in-one woodworking workstation, my router table. Now the delay was for a number of reasons, most notably a calculation error on my part. The router was originally intended to be installed over here, above the compressor in the compressor enclosure. But because I didn't consider every single dimension of the compressor, I now find myself a bit restricted. I can still get the router in, but it's going to be a tight fit. So after the last few weeks of reconsidering the design, I decided to change the placement of the router entirely. So as a result, I'll be moving the placement of the router from next to the table saw over there to over here. It's not going to be ideal, but hopefully I'll be getting very close to the same functionality from the tool. Now the easiest way to do this is just to cut a hole and fix the router at the bottom, but I'm not too fond of that method, so I'm going to be making an insert out of perspex that I can cut into the worktop or the bench top and then fix the router to that. Then I can add T-slots for my fence that I'm going to be making with a dust collection port and also for feather boards and stuff like that. And then I just need to add a on-off control switch on the outside of the bench somewhere where I can reach it when the router is installed to the bench. So without messing around too much, the first thing I'm going to jump on is making the cutout out of perspex. Okay, so to make the insert I'm going to use a piece of 8mm thick plexiglass or perspex, and I'm going to be cutting it to size using my router, and then I'll just match the size as a cutout in the workbench that it can fit into. Now, perspex is very brittle and I've never cut it before using a router, so in the hopes of actually doing it properly, I got the sharpest bit I can find and I'm just going to be reducing the speed on the router a bit, and hopefully it turns out alright. And also, as opposed to cutting a rectangular or square cutout, I'm going to make it round. It's just a bit easier for me. And that's the disc. And I must say, cutting with a router actually worked out quite well. So now I'm going to cut the center hole and the mounting holes to fit the router to it, and then just finish it off, and then I can make a hole in the bench top as well. Now, if you guys are wondering why I am marking my holes like this as opposed to just using this, putting it on top and marking the holes, well, the corresponding holes for these are actually Imperial thread, but the router does make provision with an additional set of holes that have metric threads, which I'm going to be using instead because it is very hard for me to get hold of countersunk Imperial thread screws where I'm from. Okay guys, so this is pretty much what I had in mind for the insert. All I'm going to do now is take it apart again, use a chamfer bit on the router just to tidy up the burrs around the edges here. Then I can clean up my workbench and cut the hole in the bench top. If the insert works as planned, I'll get started on the fence. Okay guys, so with the insert pretty much complete, I can clear the bench and make the cutout in the bench top. There's still 1 or 2 holes I need to add to this, but that I can do when it's inserted into the bench. Alright guys, so with the insert prepped and the bench cleaned up, I can make the cutout in the bench top. I'm going to use the circle guide for the router to make a recessed cut into which the insert can fit. The most important thing here is obviously that the recess needs to be cut very accurately so that when the insert is inserted into the bench, it sits flush with the top of the bench. And that's it for the insert, guys. Like I said, I'm still have to drill 1 or 2 holes, probably fix it down, but that's it for now. I must say I am very impressed with the depth stop on the router because it is very close to spot on. So next up is cutting in the T-slots into the bench top, assembling the fence, getting it in place, and then I can put the router in and see how the whole thing works. Alright guys, so that's it for the T-tracks. The T-tracks installed, now I can jump onto the fence. But as you may have noticed, my dust collector is not working at the moment due to a damaged pipe. Mostly stupidity on my part. So I'm just going to step out of the shop for a few moments, allow the dust to settle, and when I get back I can get cracking on assembling the fence. Okay guys, so this is the 7 components that's going to be making up my fence. I've got the base, the actual fence, 4 braces or stiffeners and a dust collection port. And to prepare them, I basically sized a piece of MDF on the table saw, and then for the base and the fence I made these cutouts with a hole saw and removed the corners there with a handsaw. This will then be assembled like that, allowing the fence to move over the bit when the router is running or to set it. Then the braces, obviously using the miter saw to make 45 cuts, will be assembled with 2 at the ends there, and then the other 2 will be on the inside here. The dust collection port, once again the bevels was cut using the miter saw and the hole in the center was cut on the drill press, and that will be glued into place like that. So the dust collection hose can just attach there. So the only thing after assembling this that I'd still need to do is drill a hole there, so I can attach my fence to the T-slots and adjust it accordingly when being used. Okay guys, so with the fence assembled, the T-tracks in place, the inside, it is finally time to add the router. Now I have chosen a Triton router specifically for this project because of its height adjustment mechanism, which will allow me to adjust the height from above the work surface. But there is a whole list of features that make these routers great for table mounting, which I covered in a separate video. If you want to check it out, the link is down below. So let me get on with it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I still have 1 or 2 holes to add to the perspex. One obviously being for the height winder, and then maybe 2 or 3 places to fix the perspex to the bench top. And that is that, guys. The router is in, the height adjustment works great, the auto spindle lock for the single wrench bit change works. So all in all, I think it looks pretty cool, considering my only real expense was a piece of perspex and a couple of aluminium T-slots. I still do want to add a safety switch, which I think is very important, somewhere where I can reach it, but like I said, this was not the original placement for the router, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want to put this. In the meantime, I'll just be switching it on and off there by the wall. So before I can actually properly put a few pieces of wood through it, I'm going to clear up the bench here and then see how it works. All that's left to do now is invest in some feather boards and proper push blocks. But with that comes the end of my all-in-one woodworking workstation. There is still 1 or 2 things I want to do. I want to add a proper fence to my table saw and do a power layout for the bench. But as far as the original concept goes, this is pretty much it. One workbench with a router table, a thickness planer, a miter saw, table saw, dust collection, compressor, power tool storage, an organizer, a vise, and just some cavities for general storage. Now, I have already started planning my next big build series, and I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be something completely different than the workbench. It's basically going to be me and a bunch of buddies getting together and over a space of about a week just building something and having fun doing it. So if you guys want to see that, remember to subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can check out the links to our merch stores in the description of this video, where we've got about 10 woodworking themed t-shirts for sale. And with that, as always, thanks for watching. Till next time, cheers.